Pointing to lose as ever, but of course we are going to try and cover it today. The title I've gone for is fine margins in a tough game, and I think whilst I didn't necessarily expect West Ham to go away to Manchester City and blow them away, it was really just down to moments that West Ham, a lapse in concentration, a lack in positioning, made it a different type of game. And I think I want to have this conversation in terms of being a bit more balanced. It's frustrating to me as to anyone watching this to lose games. I hate losing games, but I think we've got to try and keep some kind of perspective on what went well and obviously what didn't go so well and why we lost. Now, it was interesting for me to see Moyes' approach to the game. Obviously, Arthur came in and I expected him to play as a left wing back, and I think that's what he was entitled to do for Manchester City's first goal. But in terms of playing him as a left attacking midfielder, I could understand it from the first 10 minutes. He's dynamic. He'll take players on. I think when you're playing against Manchester City and what Moyes wanted to do was get on the ball and create from there, you've got to have movement and you've got to have players that are willing to take the opposition out of the game. And Arthur at times offered that. And I could understand why he did it. But in order for that to work, he, of course, has to be switched on defensively. And that's the case for Pablo and it's the case for Masuaku. And that's the type of responsibility that was put on them. Now, I think in terms of West Ham's play, I thought Benrahma and Antonio's movement, and it's a different story, I think, when we're talking about second half because of the way that we wanted to play. Generally, when we had the ball, their movement was good. I thought their movement was intelligent. I thought Benrahma was moving into half spaces, which again is a way of trying to break down Manchester City, where Rodri, unlike our defensive midfielders, isn't going to slot into the spaces like Souček or Rice. So he had space there. I thought Antonio's movement and at times trying to drop deep and build the play was better. And I was actually genuinely encouraged from the first half an hour. He'd obviously set Benrahma, a lack of quality and a lack of composure, I feel, again meant that we didn't take our chance. But there was another chance, of course, and it came from us inviting pressure from Manchester City. For long periods of time, possibly over the last 2 years, we've seen us sit a lot deeper against these sides and counter-attack. We did it against Liverpool. I discussed it in the preview. It was interesting for me today to see that West Ham wanted to play out of Manchester City's press, and it became too much in the second half. It was just way too difficult. They're way too composed to deal with our pressure, but for us to competently and consistently deal with theirs, particularly when we're trying to build possession. And Dawson's played the ball down the right-hand side. Antonio's got inside Laporte and he's had to bring him down. Now, when that was happening, I could understand the tactic. The problem was, as time went on, I think Fabianski's distribution was poor. And I don't feel that we are good enough yet to deal with it. A player like Lanzini gives us an option. And I think that's why a lot of people were calling for him in this game, in terms of picking the ball up from deep and beating players. And obviously the quality for the goal, we can talk about that and park that for a minute. It was just a case of it was too risky. And I think West Ham reverted back to trying to play long into Mikel Antonio, push Souček a bit higher and win headers and hopefully keep hold of the ball long enough in Manchester City's half. But that didn't happen. And they turned the screw, Manchester City. They genuinely did. I thought they tried to play with the likes of Bernardo Silva and Gundogan, who obviously got the goal, and playing those half spaces between our centre-backs. That was the target for them. I think they were trying to play the ball early. I thought West Ham were trying to play a slightly higher line, and I think it caught them out. I think the problem is with Manchester City generally is the difference in the way that they can play against teams. And Cancelo, in terms of picking the pass for the goal, it's a phenomenal ball, but I think we have to talk about Arthur's positioning and the reliance that we need on those wide attacking midfielders in Fornals and Masuaku. As much as Masuaku, I feel, offers something in an attacking sense, defensively, positionally, it's a problem. And in a game like this, you just can't switch off because the margin for error is so small. And going 1-0 down changes the dynamic of the game. Man City don't have to chase another goal. They're happy dominating. And it's the pressure and the onus is on West Ham to change the game plan. So I was disappointed in that sense. It left Creswell massively exposed. And I think people have discussed about Johnson and Dawson and how we've defended that overload for Manchester City. The issue I have with it and why I don't portion some of the blame to Johnson as much as I do to Arthur is because once you're out of position and Manchester City are committed midfielders like they do, and we know that they effectively play with 6 midfielders, that's an issue. It's a big, big problem. And to pick players up like that and additional runs like that when you're out of shape, that will always happen for them to have a chance. So I think it does come from a breakdown earlier in play, and it is from Arthur. I think someone actually mentioned it was from Dawson in terms of playing it forward and losing the ball. There's a perfect argument there in terms of how West Ham are economical in possession. Unfortunately, I'd like to sit here and say that I was able to watch large portions of the end of the second half, but I couldn't see the ball. I could gather that Manchester City were dominating possession. Kyle Walker was very comfortable in central areas, and Man City were creating at will. And there was a problem with Arthur defensively in terms of the positions that he's picking up. He was too central, and again, I think I was seeing Creswell having to be a little bit wider than he's used to playing, and I think that causes problems. And that's the risk we ran, I think, for what we were trying to gain out of Manchester City. Second half, I saw a slight change in shape. We know that Lanzini obviously came on, but I think West Ham were trying to go back to what we know, and that's be a transition-based team and be effective in those moments. I thought Declan Rice, for what it's worth, was fantastic in the second half in terms of reading, intercepting, carrying the ball, and that's I talk about fine margins. That's what you need in a game like this: a player to pick the ball up and commit Manchester City players. The issue is when West Ham were on the counter, the quality wasn't there. It was lacking. We were thrashing at things. I don't think we kept the ball long enough in Manchester City's final third for a long enough period to create. And in those moments where Manchester City were out of shape, West Ham just weren't clinical enough. And Ben Rama in particular, there's numerous occasions where there's been a breakdown in play and we've lost the ball. And when you go to that game plan of sitting slightly deeper, not playing as a higher line, and obviously we didn't create too many chances and we were really just down to a Manu goal to even get a consolation in that game, you've got to be lightning in those moments. And West Ham weren't. And that was really frustrating to see. And again, it puts onus on the players. I've seen people talk about playing with different game plans. I agree. The problem was it didn't work. And when you're 1-0 down, you've got to chase the game and you've got to allow Manchester City to come onto you. And it was frustrating from that point. I mean, it's very hard to say anything in terms of West Ham in possession. I thought Johnson at times today on the ball was poor, which was frustrating. And I think all of this is magnified just as a general point when our players need to be absolutely perfect in possession in order for us to be effective in a game against City because of their counter press. And when we put under that type of onus and that pressure, the quality just wasn't there today. And that was frustrating to see. Now, Bowen came on. I thought he looked okay. Again, you're talking about later in the game. I mean, West Ham, I don't think committed too many men forward. It was only really to the 80th minute. We opened up. Souček played a lot further forward. The fullbacks were introduced. But again, you look at the goal from Manchester City, who were very, very comfortable even when we were chasing the game in the second half. And it all comes down to the availability of players and the difference in the team that they are to the team that we are. And that is by creating bodies around the ball, creating space, being comfortable in possession, playing around pressure. And it played into their hands in terms of how they could control the game. The goal comes from, for me, West Ham are stretched. City have an overload on the left like they do for most of the periods of most games that they play, with Cancelo, of course. And you look at the position for the replay of the goal and Declan Rice and Souček. Normally that double pivot is very structured. It's disciplined. That the spaces between the lines between them is very short. And when Fernandinho's got an opportunity at the edge of the box, without your defensive midfielders there, the centre-backs in the way that we play will always sit off and keep their shape. So it was what it was. I thought, to be fair, City would have won the game anyway. Credit to Manu, as I say, I think there's a real case for Manuel Lanzini to come in against Brighton. I think tactically he offers us something different. I think Brighton will pressure us. I think he'll be able to more effectively create an overload. And I think we'll be able to build possession and keep possession against Brighton more and create space. That's a conversation for another day. You've got to give him a lot of credit in terms of the goal that he took. It's probably a goal in a month if it's not in a game that you've lost. But he's stating a serious case there for me. And we have to use him, really. I think when you look at Brighton and you look at the games, obviously we've got Chelsea on Saturday as well. We need to start rotating a little bit. And the Arthur Masuaku experiment, I think, was in part because we have a game on Wednesday. And obviously Moyes wants to rest players and rotate. So I can see why he did that. But I don't think it's shocking anyone by what he lacked defensively as opposed to what he offers going forward. And that's why at the beginning of the video, when I state A, about fine margins, but B, about Arthur, got to keep perspective on what he is. Good in terms of what he can do in the final third, understand the reasons for him being there, but it cost us in terms of that first goal. And I thought up to that point, West Ham, by and large, defended well enough and had a good enough shape to deal with Manchester City as much as you can allow a team to dominate the ball by 75%. So I understand people being frustrated with the game. Of course, I said in the start of the video, that's exactly how I feel. I hate losing, but I am trying to keep perspective on it. I think they're valid arguments when people are talking about a refresh of the attacking midfielders, the movement and the runs and individually committing players. I think West Ham have to work on that going forward in a game like that if we're not going to play in terms of transition. but it was always a tall order against Manchester City. And we go again. And listen, we got to beat Brighton. We have to beat Brighton. We've got to come up with something tactically that's different to what we've done before, whether it's Manuel Lanzini, whether it's building slightly deeper and inviting pressure on and not trying to dominate the ball against a team that's so comfortable in playing out for them. It'll be ineffective if West Ham try and press them in a 4-4-2 because they have a wide back three and players like Basuma that will be comfortable, and it'll force West Ham out of shape. It's a conversation for another day. Let me know in the comment section what you think about that game. Are you frustrated? Do you look at it in perspective? Do you agree with my points on some of the players that I've mentioned? Arthur, Antonio, Benrahma, Lanzini. And listen, I'd love to end it on a lighter note, but we'll be back. We'll always be back. And that's the only thing I can say about West Ham this season and so far in the last 12 months. So not to panic, not to worry. I'm sure we'll get back to winning ways and a positive result on Wednesday. Take care.